by the time this video is published, the preview event will be over, and we'll all be going through withdrawals and want to play Legends of Runeterra some more. I decided to film some stuff ahead of time so that I could release it while the game is on its break, so that we can maybe fulfill that itch a little bit, but also I wanted to share the decks that I played and had a lot of fun with during the preview event. And this particular deck is going to be a Jinx and Draven list centered around the discard mechanic. I actually had a lot of fun with this. I've done some other videos already, and I forgot to say in those, so here's the quick PSA. I am also putting the deck codes in the video descriptions for all of these. So when the game comes back up, assuming nothing changes with the deck codes, it is a preview patch after all, so maybe something will change, but assuming nothing changes, you will be able to take these decks if you like them or want to use them as a starting point or inspiration, and then import them in. So without further ado, let's take a look at this list. And this is a Draven and Jinx list, and I centered on this because Draven here had a good stat line. He was a 4-3 for 3 with quick attack, but also he makes these spinning axes, and in order to level him up, you have to have him specifically hit while having a spinning axe at least twice. And I was thinking to myself, like, well, this makes me discard a card. How do I negate that disadvantage? Because normally you don't want to give yourself card disadvantage. And so in looking around, I found Jinx, who levels up when your hand is empty. So Draven helps you also level up Jinx. And then I also found a bunch of cards like Jury Rig, for example, that says when cast or discarded, summon a Scrap Scuttler, right? So we're basically going to be playing a bunch of cards that either do something when they're discarded or allow you to discard cards to trigger the other effects. So starting right out of the gate here, Draven's biggest fan. Why? Because we want to find Draven. Jury Rig, again, this does something when discarded. This is just a big body. It's a 3-2 for 1. This is, after all, still an aggressive deck. You're going to come out of the gates and you're going to start swinging. Rummage helps you with the discard thing, but this also, in theory, helps you trigger Jinx, because the way this works, the 2-play discard 2 part of this is part of the cost. And so if in doing so that discards your entire hand, you'll actually level up Jinx and then draw the 2 cards. So Rummage here helps you find things, but it's also a trigger. 1 Urchin just for more 1-drops, and it discards. Prodigy here is for the quick attack. This unit's a pretty strong 2-drop. Flame Chompers, they get played for free when discarded. Mystic Shot, just because it's basically burn. Sump Dredger, this is an overstated body. It's a 4-3 for 2, but to play it you have to discard a card. Again, it fits into our game plan. Then Draven, Get Excited, again, more burn, but with a discard effect for our triggers. Reckless Trifarian is again on theme with our 1-drop, right? It's just an overstated card, but it cannot block. Vision, this buffs basically your entire team, but you can play it for free when discarded, and then Jinx at the top end. So this is the deck. It is also worth noting, real quick, it's not just leveling up Jinx that's important for entering your hand. Once she's leveled up, you draw an extra card each round, but if you empty your hand each round, you make a super mega death rocket, and that's a pretty big deal. I've never had anybody survive more than 2 of these. By the time you're casting the second one, with a deck like this, you are likely just winning the game. So yeah, it's important to keep your hand size down with this deck, which is kind of counterintuitive, but that's why I like the deck. So now that I've went through the list, kind of talked about card choices and what it's trying to do, with each of these videos, I'm also including 1 game's worth of gameplay so you can see how the deck operates, and let's do that now. Alright, so we are jumping into a game against a mono Piltover and Zaun list, which tells me, usually when I see this, I think Teemo immediately. I guess we'll keep the 1 Vision. Vision's the sort of card you actually want to discard later, but we have this 1-drop. I actually think we're going to get rid of both. We'd rather find one of our different free discard effects, if possible. Like, Chompers is perfect here.
Nothing like the
Hey, speak of the Devil Gang. So go ahead and get that free Chompers, and then when this dies we draw a card, so we get that benefit as well. I don't know what it is, whenever I play against Teemo decks I feel like they always have turn 1 Teemo on the attack like clockwork. But the good news is we have a turn 2 answer here. We're just gonna Mystic Shot that all day. We're just gonna Mystic Shot that all day. Because we want to prevent, one, the Puff Caps, but also we want to prevent them leveling up Teemo, doing some ridiculous things in that regard. Sure, we'll attack with the 0-3 as well. Why not? There's no reason to, but we'll do it. So these are actually great because, one, you get free value when you discard them, but they're also good at just allowing your other attackers to get damage in. So like if they had a blocker here, by this just soaking a blocker, in theory it would mean we're hoping to get that 2 damage in. So if you're wondering why Chompers is so good, it's not just because you get to play it for free, but it also helps out your aggressive deck in forcing damage. Alright, so Ezreal comes down.
It's Draven time.
We'll play our Draven.
One shot, all skill.
We cannot block.
Ooh, that's gotta hurt.
Ezreal, much like Teemo, has elusive. Alright, so we are gonna be super greedy here. We could go straight to combat
Safety mode.
to avoid them being able to play cards, but we have 4 mana worth of bodies, and then when we play our axe and we discard this, it's also gonna buff like our entire team. So we're just hoping that they're not gonna have removal here. Now the good news is traditionally Piltover and Zon doesn't have a lot of like hard removal. It is like damage based removal, and they've already used 1 Mystic Shot, so I don't think they're gonna be able to nuke our Draven ahead of time. But that is that's our hope here. Now, if they play blockers, that's fine. We have the Chompers to kind of soak that.
I got ways to find me mushrooms.
Reporting.
All right, so that's all of their mana. So we know exactly what we're working with here for the rest of this turn, and it's going to be us again just pushing an awful lot of damage.
Oh god.
And you always want your spinning axes on Draven if he's there, just because that's the only way he levels up.
Cooking.
And we're gonna grab everybody and go to combat. And Flame Chompers here is just gonna eat this so that we can push as much damage through as we can. There's no way I can imagine they're gonna block with this Ezreal. I mean, maybe they choose to block here, but that's like the only trade they get, and then they lose out on Ezreal. But this is a pretty big turn for us. And we're close to emptying our hand, which is always nice. Now, it is worth noting, with this card, you can't play this if you have less than the 2 cards to discard. Some card games, for example, if you have a card that says, like, as an additional effect, discard a card, if you don't have the card to discard, you can still play it to like negate that drawback. However, in Legends of Runeterra, when you have these like extra play effects, you have to fulfill them. Now the good news is, if we do end up wanting to play Rummage, Draven gives us an axe, and then we draw a card next turn, so we get that opportunity. And also, as you can see, we're already getting our opponent down to 3 here. So that whole like this is an aggro deck thing, you can kind of see where it's going. Alright, so they're going to shuffle some more stuff in, and I think we are going to take our opportunity to Rummage. I know that we could level up Draven next turn, potentially, but I think I want to dig a bit deeper here, because I think this game is going to be over long before the leveled up Draven is relevant. I would rather cycle through and keep our hand low, because if we top deck Jinx, then we can level her up immediately, and that's another reason why we're doing this. But we also wanted to get bodies on the board, because we're gonna basically take this next turn. Yeah, I think they're realizing that this is potentially over, because our next turn here, we're gonna just go straight to combat, and then, unless they've got something to stop it, we just win. So they're gonna go all in and then hope that the puff caps are like unfavorably stacked. Now we get to maybe block something, which might seem counterintuitive, but it's actually fine. So if we block here, it's the same as getting rid of the blockers for the next turn, but it's keeping ourselves from accidentally losing. Because we still have more than enough to push this through for this next turn. So it's going to come around, and as I said, we're going to go straight to combat. So they'll only have spells. They'll only have spells to potentially answer. So they have to be able to block one and then have spells to deal with the other two. It's a great sign for us if they're playing Mushroom Clouds, because that means they probably don't have answers and they're going through the motions. They probably just really wanted to shroom us up. Hey look, more Mushroom Clouds. Alright, so the Ezreal comes in for the block, and that is the game. So it's a very fast deck, very capable of emptying its hand. We didn't get to see the Jinx there, but you can see the position that you're putting yourself in, right? Where if you top deck a Jinx, then you can immediately level her up, start getting that benefit potentially from the Super Mega Death Rockets, etc., etc. It's just, I think, a fun list, and that's it. So if you made it this far, I appreciate you. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you consider subscribing, and I will catch you in future videos.